It was 5 a.m. Monday morning. Zach got all of his gear together and headed over to my place, where I loaded up the equipment in the back of his truck. Just a quick stop for gas, and we were off to travel 50 miles to the east, where we would spend the next 2 days in one of the first primitive areas created in 1930, in Mountain Lake's wilderness. The wilderness sits in a glacier-carved caldera of an ancient 12,000-foot volcano that was destroyed long ago. We arrived at the trailhead at about 7 a.m., where we threw on our packs and proceeded to trek the next 6 miles to our goal, Harriet Lake. This area is teeming with wildlife, and lucky for us, we spotted rough grouse at the trailhead until Zach suggested I get in closer, in which the bird flew away. We spotted mule deer, chipmunks, dippers, and plenty of mountain chickadees in the meadow's edges as we pushed forward to our first stop, Lake Como, which we would use to fill our life straws and rest for a bit. This was 5 miles into the hike, but little did we know just how much of the white stuff would still be on the trail as we made our way through the lodgepole pine and white fir forest. After soaking our boots trudging through the melting snow, we got to Lake Como, which was a welcome relief in scenery and just relief in general from our 40-pound packs. Welcome to Mountain Lake's Wilderness. This is one of my favorite wildernesses to come to, just due to its isolation, and there's not a lot of people that come out here in the Klamath Basin. We're here at Como Lake. It's about a 10-acre lake, fairly shallow, like 15 feet. It's stocked with brook trout. I've seen a few rise around the rim of the lake, and it's absolutely gorgeous out here. I mean, our snowpack is probably, you can see it on the edge of the lake, but we're looking at about 2 to 3 feet in most north-facing spots, which is pretty good because this area hasn't really seen much snow this winter, just due to not a lot of storms and a lot of rain. But the last 2 weeks we actually had a cold front come in and drop a lot of snow, so a lot of this is new and just packed on, melted and iced over. But we're on our way to Harriet Lake, which is a good jaunt, about 500 feet up that way, another mile, so that's where you'll see us next. Although the stop at Como Lake was nice, we still had most of the uphill gain on the last mile and a half hike up, and then down to one of the prettiest lakes in southern Oregon. 6 miles in, we finally reached Harriet Lake. Oh, that was a jaunt right up to the end, but it is one of the prettiest lakes in all of southern Oregon. Oh man, amazing. And we are welcome to Lake Harriet, or Harriet Lake. I'm not sure it matters which, but nonetheless, the views of this lake were absolutely breathtaking and is one of the clearest lakes I have ever seen personally. Carved out by glaciers long ago, Harriet is deep and blue, at over 50 feet deep and 50 acres large. Once we got down to the lake, we set up camp, and I pulled out my 4-weight, and on my first cast, was able to hook a rainbow trout on a pear ant fly pattern. Bro! I have to release him too. Look at how pretty he is. That water's freezing. So, just first cast out here with an ant pattern on 6X. Right off the shore, not too deep. This is like the nicest trout. I've been here one other time, and this is the nicest trout I've caught out of this lake. First cast, crazy. Oh, beautiful rainbow trout, about 13, 14 inches. Oh man, gorgeous fish. After the first rainbow we caught, me and Zach trotted through the 3+ feet of snow on the north side of the lake, catching several other rainbow and brook trout, keeping some cold on ice, literally for the dinner later that night. But something had struck my mind before we ever came out here. I thought that even though we were well below 8,000 feet, that there might be a very special rabbit species hiding amongst the shale near the lake. The Pika, a rodent known to be very sensitive to heat and climate change, and unbelievably adorable. Without any signs of the little creature, we stoked the fire and made our own little oven with rocks to sear the trout to get some good protein in us before the night's end. We're just tossing on these fish, just keep flipping them, rotating them, and smoking them over the fire. We made a little oven to keep this heat in, and we'll cook a couple more brook trout after this. As the sun was setting and what seemed to be a storm blowing in, I heard what might be the infamous eep call of the pika nearby. there's a pika in the shale. This is great. So I ran over with my tripod to see what I could find. There's a pika literally like 10 feet that way. Right here. He doesn't know what's going on. We're just trying to film him. It seemed that the weather was going to fare worse, but then we heard them, and then I finally found this precious little creature. Oh my god. Oh my god. And then we spotted another. And then another one. Although seeing the pike in its natural habitat was quite amazing, it was getting colder and darker, so we decided to get back to camp, warm up by the fire before we went to bed, crawled in our tents, and enjoyed the rest of the night in peace. As the starry skies gave way to open air, the morning came as swiftly as the night had passed, and we didn't have much time until we had to pack up camp. The morning provided a dead calm on the water, and an opportunity to fish dry flies for trout cruising the shore looking for ants and beetles, which also allowed me to catch my 6th and final trout of the trip. Me and Zach both valued our time out in this wilderness, and we both vowed we'd do it again next year. Our most important takeaway was that we can't take places like this for granted, because I know so many kids that would give anything to do something we can go and do whenever we want. And that's why we believe that freedom should run wild in Mountain Lakes Wilderness, Southern Oregon.